All right, we are back from that rousing game break, and now Chelsey Donn, it's time for your 1-star review.
I know. I feel almost bad for Michelle that we're gonna dive into this, but let's do it. Okay. So this is a 1-star review for Pronovias, as we've mentioned. It is written by Laura T. Okay. And there's no subject, I don't think. No subject.
Mm-mm.
All right, here we go. Seamstress streaked blood on my gown. Read on. Please. Please, please. Order a Pronovias dress, but avoid the flagship location in Midtown Manhattan.
Oh.
I was not one of the small, pushy, bridal boutiques kind of brides, so I found the huge, glamorous flagship store very attractive because they do tons of business and don't push you into anything. I liked the big setting, but what happens with a big setting is that you get lost. And this is what happened to me. Last fitting, I scheduled a month in advance and brought my whole family with me to learn to tie the bustle and take the dress home. All appointments scheduled way in advance. No work had been done on the dress.
Oh, no.
Nothing. I was forced to come back 1 week later, right before my wedding. Extremely stressful. Coming back right before my wedding? No work had been done again! Sat in waiting room for 45 minutes while manager falsely chatted me up. Seamstress arrived, sweating and thanking me for giving her more time. After taking dress home, opened the bag. Seamstress had pricked her finger and streaked blood down the front of my gown. 4 days before my wedding.
Oh, my God.
Forced to find out-of-town dry cleaners and pay $300 bill.
Ooh.
Then noticed garnet was snagged on the lower part of the dress. Didn't bother fixing it because blood was main concern. Total mess. Contacted store. All they did was apologize and pay for the dry cleaning. Contacted corporate after wedding. Asked for a full refund on dress because they ruined the week before my wedding. And stress and dry cleaning bills and drama. They absolutely refused to refund me. It was $1,700 and said they did enough paying the dry cleaning bill. So, get your Pronovias dress at one of the many NYC shops, not the flagship. Total nightmare. I should be suing them, to be honest. Ooh, Laura T. Laura T spilled the tea on Pronovias.
Pronovias. Whoa. Okay, wait.
Yeah.
What is a garnet?
What is a garnet?
The garnet was ripped. What's a garnet?
Oh, yeah, you're right. What is a garnet? It's something to do with the inside of the dress, like the like boning. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. Garnet on dress. Women's garnet dress?
Wedding garnet. What is it?
Garnet bridesmaid dress. I don't know. Maybe it's... I don't know.
Is it
I
a
just keep getting...
fabric? I don't know.
It's something that was ripped. Whatever.
Something was ripped.
I think my favorite part of this review is when Laura T says, sat for 45 minutes while the manager falsely chatted me up.
I know.
Falsely chatted me
I was like, what does that even mean? I mean, I'm sure.
But I get a clear picture even though I don't know what it means.
Same. Like, I think she was just... because obviously... See, this is what obviously, there was some sort of major flub up that happened.
Multiple times with the schedule.
With the scheduling. I don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but, like, something was definitely going on. It actually kind of reminded me a little bit of the wedding cake review moment where it's like, throw in the girl that doesn't know anything about the wedding cake curry because they like made some sort of mistake and scheduled people at the same time. Like, that's how I see the situation, where the owner was probably like, you know, can I get you any tea, or I'm so sorry again, you know, oh, when's your wedding? Tell me about it. Like, it's clear that they were, you know, trying to, I understand.
Face.
Yeah. Save face. Exactly.
I wonder what the reverse here is. Like, if you are the bride and you miss one of these appointments, I wonder if there's a fee.
Probably. There's always some sort of double standard. I thought it was interesting because when we were reading the first review, I really was just picturing Pronovias. Like, okay, this is the wedding store. I go in here and get my gown. Like, probably, I honestly wasn't, when they describe it as this flagship, for some reason in my head, and they do describe it as big. Like, it seems like a huge, like, factory. And in my mind, when we were reading the other review, it seemed much more boutique-y. So I thought that was interesting because this really changed my opinion of the store. And then I also thought it was interesting that they sell Pronovias dresses elsewhere. So in other words, I guess if you go into, like, Jane's Bridal Boutique, you might be able to get a Pronovias dress there. I guess.
So that was part of that background, is that because they describe themselves as a wedding dress boutique,
right?
But they are an international franchise with over 4,000 points of sales,
true.
In over 100 countries. So they're calling themselves boutique and also calling themselves a franchise,
right? So I wonder if it's one of those situations where, like, you
can buy this at, like, David's Bridal.
You could buy this at David's Bridal, but you could also, like, go to essentially the factory where all these dresses are, and maybe they've, like, sectioned off a front portion of that to look like a boutique. A boutique.
Well, also Laura says, like, you could go to a different Pronovias in New York that isn't the flagship.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I was very confused about that whole thing. Like, it made me think,
well, it's like retail, because you could go to H&M or you could go to the H&M flagship.
I guess that just didn't come up in the last review at all. So it makes me wonder, you know, is this a specific issue? Because they're obviously encouraging you to get the dress, right? So the dresses themselves multiple times. So the dresses themselves must be really, really nice. I just feel like if you have a flagship in a city, aren't all the dresses ultimately being funneled out of that flagship? I mean,
I guess I'm a little blurry on what flagship actually means. I just felt like every, like, store has to have one main headquarters, essentially, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's, like, the factory, right? Or
but the way they're describing it makes it seem like that, because it's, like, you know, very large and industrial, and that's what they liked about it, that it wasn't, like, super boutique-y. I mean, the blood on the dress.
Can't you just imagine? Do you think that this is Maritz from the other one, or do you think they have multiple seamstresses?
I think they have I don't think that this is Maritz. I don't think Maritz would do that. I just wonder, like, if there was blood on the dress and the seamstress arrived, like, frantic and whatever, I just wonder, like, what was the lead up? Was it like she showed up and the manager had to go to the back and be like, oh my God, the girl is back. Her wedding is, like, in a day. We still didn't do the changes, do them really fast. And then the woman was trying to do them really fast and hurt herself in the middle of it.
I think that's sort of the narrative that Laura might be thinking, because that is sort of how it occurred to me. And that just makes me go into, like, panic mode as the seamstress, because you know that your manager has told you, like, somehow this ball was dropped.
Right.
You have to get here as soon as you can and, like, make this work. And then you accidentally cut yourself. It's sort of like,
do you think that the seamstress didn't tell the manager? Because I feel like even though this is really bad, and I'm sure either way Laura would have freaked out, if, like, God forbid this happened and they said, listen, like, I'm so sorry, we had this accident. Like, you know, obviously accidents happen. We want to take care of it. We're going to get it dry cleaned. We're going to do whatever. We're going to take 20% off the dress. Like, if they had addressed it at that point, you know, I'm sure Laura would have been upset and maybe left like a 2-star review. But there is something about like just sending someone with a bloody gown. Like, what if Laura didn't open the dress until the day of her wedding?
The day of.
That would
that's
have been
the other thing too. Is
terrible.
Like, I wonder if I do, for whatever reason, believe Laura that there was blood on the dress.
Yes.
So if going off of that assumption, it either the seamstress didn't notice, or the seamstress intentionally didn't share the information,
right.
or the manager chose to keep it a secret because in order to address it in that moment after you've dropped the ball twice already,
exactly.
and it's a week before, you are going to have to refund fully, I would imagine, at that point. So it's possible that the manager was like, we're just going to ignore this. And then when an issue arises, we're going to say no refunds. I mean,
I wonder if you would have to like, I mean, this is a terrible situation, but I wonder if,
terrible.
First of all, I do think I agree with Laura. I think they should have done more. I think just paying for the dry cleaning is not enough. Like, I always get upset whenever somebody like really messes something up and they just kind of bring you back to baseline when it's like, no. Like,
emotional distress.
Yeah, there's like so much that goes into this, and just paying for the dry cleaning does not address the error. It's just like, correct. Oh yeah, we're gonna pay for fixing our error. Well, duh.
Right.
You should fix
I
error.
appreciate that they covered the dry cleaning. I appreciate that didn't seem to be an issue. It is interesting to me. I recognize that it's like, just get through the wedding and then we'll deal with it. But there is something that then feels a little like you've lost some power in your court to then the wedding has happened to then be like, you have to refund me. Rather than like in the moment be like,
yeah,
this is outrageously unacceptable.
I guess, but at the same time, it's like if you're that close to your wedding, you are in like problem solve mode. Like, you are hysterical and your best friend, maid of honor, is just like, you know what? Let me handle this. I will bring this to a dry cleaner. We will figure it out. Yes. We will get the money back later. Like, we don't have to think like that. Addressing it after the wedding it makes sense to me. I'm sure it does make sense. I'm sure they took photos. I'm sure which is interesting. Can you do photos on the knot?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. Because it would have been really powerful if there were photos, of course. But this is unacceptable. This is a very useful review. I mean, besides the fact that like it's gross, I think like if I was going to go to Pronovias, I would come armed with this review and be like, I love your dresses, but like, I need to make sure that something like this does not happen to me. Otherwise, bye.
I agree. I think that it is like outrageously valuable.
Yeah.
It's also, I just want to point out, it's interesting that they start the review with, please buy a dress here. But not at this one. And then they end with, please buy this dress at a different. Like, that is so wild to me. Because they're really pointing out that it's management and like facility specific hires. Right. Not the actual dress itself. Which is like a clarity that I think most 1-star reviewers don't really pinpoint.
Yeah.
They tend
no pun intended
to be like enraged.
Yes.
Oh my God. God, I just imagine that seamstress freaking out.
Oh my God, me too. I was just going to address that. I'm so glad you brought it up because that first line is like everything. But I think that leads into the trustworthy factor here, right? Because it's like we've read plenty of reviews, like the one about Spa Castle, or there was another review where they kind of just, they threw it. Oh, the hotel review where they just like throw in sort of dig type things on top of the issue, and it feels like you're piling on, like you're just like trying, like you had this issue and I would have believed you, but instead of just like addressing the issue as it is, you had to pile on. I really appreciated that Laura T did not pile on.
I think you're right. I think that's why it feels so truthful.
Yeah, it really, really does. Like I believe them. I believe that this is their experience. I see the passion. I mean, clearly we had a lot of all caps moments, but I think it's funny because if you just read the all caps, you can kind of get the like shortened narrative. It's like an
cool.
internal thing. Like, no work was done on the dress, no work was done again. There was blood on the front of my gown. It was snagged. It was a total nightmare. Like, if you're just reading the bullet points, you know, you get the full narrative, which is pretty interesting.
So then do we think that narrative is common or a fluke? I mean, I imagine the blood as a fluke, but I kind of, at first, I really wanted to be defensive of the shop and say, you can't say that because it's a big shop, you're going to get lost in the fray. I think that's like, I think that is assumptive, not factual.
I agree.
But I do feel like it could be common. It could be common. I mean, they forgot to alter it.
That's bad.
Twice. That is so beyond the pale to me.
That's bad. I mean, once is one thing. Twice, I mean, do I think it's common? Yeah, I think that it's probably common amongst, honestly, like the wedding dress industry in general. Like, I've had friends at other stores that have had similar situations to this.
Really?
I have. I mean, not this situation, but just like other situations, thankfully, that seem to have ended well. But like, at least in the beginning, where it was like I showed up and it seemed like nobody was ready for me to be there type stuff.
Interesting.
And then luckily for them, it ended up, you know, well, all's well that ends well. But like, I do think it's interesting. Like, I think it is presumptive to say that it's just because it's the flagship store. I think we're grasping for an explanation here because it's so bizarre. And these sort of smaller boutiques, while interestingly enough, Laura T is saying not really her jam, I do think that they, in my mind, at least the way this is all being described, they are more about customer service and like you're the only one that has the appointment that day and it's all about you and blah, 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 you know?
There's definitely an air of that, right?
There's definitely an air of that, which I guess maybe could be missing in this setting, that I think Laura T is obviously sort of kicking herself for going this route. I wonder how many other people go to this location. I guess that's something that I'm feeling a little bit confused about.
Yeah, I'm unsure.
Yeah.
What do you this is neither here nor there, but it struck me. What do you think about her? Sorry. What do you think about Laura inviting their entire family for the final fitting?
Not that
That
weird.
seems like but it feels like such a giveaway. I mean, I recognize it's like to learn how to tie the bustle and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like the wedding is in a week, or I guess 2 weeks.
I don't know. I mean,
it just feels like the big reveal, like to invite the whole family to come for the final fitting versus like the big shock and awe of seeing you on the wedding day. But maybe I'm unaware because I don't do this.
Yeah, I mean, that didn't raise any flags for me.
Okay.
I think that makes sense, especially if you have a dress with a difficult bustle. My sister had a dress with a difficult bustle, and I went to like multiple fittings to learn how to do that thing, and it still took us a long time. So,
when was this written?
This was written in 2018, so pre-pandemic.
I wonder, because to me, I feel like $1,700 for a wedding dress isn't that crazy. Obviously, that's a lot of money,
right,
and that's a privileged statement. But I feel like wedding gowns are like astronomical, and when you look at the budget of a wedding, $1,700 doesn't seem that outrageous to me. I mean, like wedding rings, like at Tiffany's, are $1,000. So this is like,
no,
you know,
17 is low for a dress. But I don't know. It's funny, when I first read that part, I was like, are they talking about the full refund, or are they talking about the dry cleaning and drama? Like, did they have to have a few sessions with their life coach?
Well, they said though dry cleaning was $300, so that's like a large.
And then $1,400 of that is emotional.
I took that as the price of the gown, which in my mind, if you're an international franchise, you could refund $1,700. It's not even that much.
Right. Well, that's why I think they're saying it was only $1,700, you know. I don't know. I definitely think they could have done more. They should have done more. I'm on Laura T's side, you know.
Wait, devil's advocate.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the review, does Laura mention how early in the process they bought the dress? Because we get a timeline that the final fitting had to be the week before. But I'm wondering, Do they give us dates on the back end as well?
They don't, but they said that they scheduled the last fitting for a month in advance, and
Right.
brought the whole family with them to tie the bustle. So I'm assuming that they must have gone, if they're scheduling in a month in
Prior.
advance, they must have gone several months prior.
That was my only sort of devil's advocate, is like, was Laura coming to them with a rushed timeline?
And then
to
it
begin
says,
with?
no, because the next line after they brought their family to learn how to tie the bustle, they say all appointments scheduled way in advance.
Right.
So,
what
like,
does that even mean, though?
Well, I mean, I feel like way in advance and if they're saying it was a month and you're saying way in advance, I
Right.
think it has to be at least a couple months.
I know. I think I'm on Laura T's side here.
I think we have to be on Laura T's side. I think there was one other point that I wanted to make, and now I'm looking for it in the review.
We never really addressed humor or entertainment.
Right. Not humorous, really.
No, because it's
not a funny
humorous
matter.
subject.
Really, almost like a horror movie.
But I thought it was funny, especially under the context of a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
The funny part to me is that Laura assumes that they pricked the finger. Like, the explanation they give for the blood is a pricked finger. I just think pricked seems very dainty and delicate.
You're right. Actually, that is interesting because sometimes it's like a prick, and then they're saying they streaked blood down the front of the gown. So it's like, if I think of a prick, I think of like a little dot of blood, which again would still be upsetting.
But different than streak.
Yeah, a streak across the front of the gown seems like there's no way that the seamstress could have missed that.
I think a streaked blood is like Carrie's face and Carrie.
Right.
I think Carrie's gown
is the garnet
devoured, but I think their face is streaked with blood. What?
I'm like, the garnet was snagged on the lower part of the dress. So that's like a second issue, right? So it's like the first issue is that the blood, and the second issue is that it's snagged. Right? We have multiple issues here. This is not looking good for Pronovias, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I could crown.
I'm ready.
This.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. It's doing it again.
The sound. Do you want me to just do like a placeholder and then you'll do it in post?
Hold on. I'm going to try to do.
Add as a separate person?
Okay, it's circling, going live.
Okay.
Oh my god, it's a Karen!
The queens are tabulating. Total score.
Let me do that again because it was clipped at the beginning.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
The queens are tabulating. Total score.
All right. I'm holding up 4 crowns. Trey's holding up 4.5 crowns. Trey, let us know why 4.5 crowns for Michelle.
I only took half off because of the discrepancy in this last final hour of pricked versus streaked.
That was not for Michelle. Sorry. What is her name? That was not Michelle. Michelle was the first person.
Laura T.
Laura T. Let me do that again. Sorry. All right, Trey, you go first. Tell us why 4.5 crowns for Laura T.
I only took half crown off because of this final hour discrepancy between the word pricked and streaked. I trust Laura. I don't think this is humorous. I think that this could be common to fear that you're being lost in the fray if it's a huge flagship. The spelling was great. I like the synopsis of the caps. Like, you could just get the bullet points. I think it's incredibly unique information, very valuable. I think they should have got a refund, and I don't think I ever really feel that way.
Yeah.
But I am curious now, was it like a little bit of blood, or was it like very noticeable blood?
Right.
Also, where was it on the dress? That's another concern. Was it
The
on
front
the
of
underneath
the
side?
gown. Down the front of the gown. Yeah.
Down.
Yeah.
The front. See, like, so I wish there was an image. So,
I know.
but I would take this, like you said. I really would take this with me if I fell in love with a gown from this company, and I would call the day before every fitting to make sure that everything is good to go. And I would say, don't just say yes. Can you please put me on hold, go back, look at the gown, confirm it's been altered, come back to the phone, take me off hold, and say yes before I trot my little ass down there. Because I'm dieting. I'm trying to get fitted for this dress. Like, this is very serious.
Yeah.
So 4.5 for me. I'm really sorry.
I'm really sorry.
I'm really sorry, Laura T. I'm from Canada, and I feel for you. And thank you for sharing your experience to, like, help other people. So that's why. Chelsey, why did you say 4?
Really, like, good arguments, Trey. Almost making me feel like I should reconsider an up Laura T to a 4.5. I guess I agree with everything you said. So many great things about this review. Love the, like, cap synopsis, like really interesting technique. Really good cautionary tale here. I guess I gave it 4 because I thought this isn't going to be everybody's experience. And I know that that's, like, you know, crappy because this was Laura T's experience, but I still don't think everyone is going to have this experience. And I am trusting Michelle, where, you know, I think if I went in armed with Michelle's review and made sure that I had the seamstress that she had, I think I would be okay. And because of that, I gave Laura T 4 crowns, but I so feel for you, Laura T, and I hope that you have a beautiful marriage now, and this is so far in your past, and I'm sorry that you had to go through this, and I hope that Pronovias learned a lesson after this experience at very least.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's an example of just give the refund, because this review is going to be on the internet for life.
Right. It's like what Mark Tuminelli was saying. Like, you know, like sometimes you got to just eat it, eat the cost, pay it forward, and know, like, it's going to come back to you in the form of not having a review like this on your page.
That's a huge
you know, it is. And the other thing, I'm not as familiar with Not. Can you have a reply or no?
You can.
Oh, you can.
It's DJ Spenfo.
Oh, that's right. What am I saying? Yes. So, like, that's another thing I guess I could say against Pronovias here, is that if this was my company and the Knot is, as we know, where everybody is going to look up reviews for their wedding, how are they not responding to this?
I don't know. It's tough.
Right? Even just to respond to Laura and say, you know what, we reread your review, we thought about the situation again, we want to refund you. If you would consider taking the review down, we'd appreciate it. We just, you know, like, I just feel like it's an interesting thought to think that the review is another opportunity for the company to step up, you know, and we've seen it happen before, where it's like someone has a terrible experience, writes a review, you know, there's a reply, and then you could almost see sometimes someone will then edit the review and say, you know, after speaking to management, blah, 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 right?
Right,
so,
you can get points back,
Yeah, you can get points back. And so I think that if Pronovias is not looking at that Not page, they ought to be.
Yeah.
You know? And that's sort of my final thoughts on Pronovias. I think that the dresses must be really nice because we're hearing that consistently across the board. But this customer service issue, I think, needs to be ironed out.
Yeah, definitely. I think the fault lies at Pronovias because it's an awful circumstance, but that's, again, at the fault of the scheduling. Like, you forgot to tailor it twice. So, well, which we're assuming is true. I mean, it's possible that could be fabricated, but
I don't think it is.
And then if there's blood, then, like, it's just like, that's terrible. And it's not Laura's fault. So
it's not Laura T's fault, but Laura T has to deal with it. You know?
Baby, it's time.